I'm begging you, hurry up! The rancher stepped closer and found a life worth saving. The ranch had always been a place of quiet and routine. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden hue across the wide fields, and the gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of grass and earth. For the rancher, mornings were his favorite part of the day. He liked the stillness, the soft sounds of the animals stirring, and the feeling that the world was full of possibilities. Today was no different, or so he thought as he stepped outside, boots crunching on the gravel, and took a deep breath. He had spent most of his life on this ranch. It wasn't just land, it was a home filled with memories. Each fence post, each tree, each little patch of wildflowers had a story. He remembered when he first inherited the ranch from his father. He was younger, eager, and full of energy, with dreams of making this land not just a home but a place where others could find peace too. Over the years, he had faced many challenges, storms that threatened his crops, fences broken by wandering cattle, and days when the work seemed endless, but nothing had ever shaken his connection to this place. This morning, like many others, he started with his usual routine. First, he checked the barn, ensuring all the animals were safe and fed. The horses nickered softly as he approached, and he smiled, patting their sleek coats. The cows were grazing peacefully in the distance, their heads lowered to the ground, content in the cool morning air. Chickens clucked and pecked around the yard, while the goats, ever curious, nudged him for attention. The rancher loved this life, the quiet, simple rhythm of caring for living creatures. It gave him a sense of purpose. As he walked along the creek that ran through the property, he noticed the water glistening in the sunlight, moving slowly over smooth rocks. It was a serene scene, almost like a painting, but then something caught his attention. There were footprints in the soft mud near the water. Not from any animal he knew. They were small and uneven, as if someone had been running in a hurry. He frowned, curiosity and concern mixing in his mind. Who could be out here so early? The rancher followed the tracks carefully. The ground was slippery in places, and he had to step lightly, balancing himself against the uneven banks of the creek. The further he walked, the more he noticed signs that something was wrong. A broken branch here, a disturbed patch of grass there. It was as if someone had been struggling to make their way through the area. His heart began to beat a little faster, an instinctive warning that danger might be near. He called out softly, "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice echoed across the fields, carried by the wind, but there was no answer. Only the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of birds replied. He paused, listening carefully. Then, faintly, he heard it, a sound so weak and desperate that it made him stop in his tracks. It was a cry, a human cry, filled with fear and urgency. "Help, please!" it whispered, almost swallowed by the morning air. Immediately, the rancher's instincts kicked in. He had faced emergencies before, whether a trapped animal or a sudden storm, but this felt different. It was a human life at risk, and he knew he had to act fast. He quickened his pace, moving toward the sound, scanning the area for any sign of trouble. Every step made the cries clearer, more urgent. There was no time to waste. As he approached a small thicket near the creek, the rancher's heart sank. He could see a young child barely hanging onto a rocky ledge at the edge of a steep drop. The child's small hands clutched the rough rocks, knuckles white with tension, and tears streaked their dirty face. The child's eyes were wide with fear, and each movement made it clear how easily they could slip further. The rancher swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of the situation. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Panic could make things worse. He needed to be calm, precise, and careful. He called out gently, "I'm here!" "Don't worry, I'm coming to help you." The child's trembling voice replied, barely audible at first, "I can't hold on much longer." "Please hurry!" The desperation in those words made the rancher move faster but with caution. One wrong step could send both of them into danger. He reached for the rope in his truck, which was always there for emergencies like this. The rope felt solid and reassuring in his hands. He tied one end securely around a sturdy tree nearby, testing it to make sure it could hold. Then he approached the ledge slowly, speaking to the child in calm, encouraging tones. You're going to be okay, he said. I've got you. Just hold on a little longer. I'm right here. The child's small voice quivered. I can't. The rancher understood the fear. Hanging onto a rocky ledge with the ground falling away beneath you could terrify anyone, especially someone so small. He inched closer, using careful, deliberate movements, feeling the tension in every muscle as he reached out. The child's trembling increased, but the rancher spoke softly, telling stories about the ranch, about animals, about how things would be fine. Every word was meant to calm, to distract from the terror of the moment. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The sun climbed higher in the sky, but the rancher barely noticed. All that mattered was the child and keeping them safe. He positioned himself in a way that gave both stability and reach, extending his arms slowly. The child's eyes, filled with fear, now also showed a flicker of hope. The rancher felt a surge of determination. He had faced storms, wild animals, and long, hard days. But this was different. This was about saving a life, and he would do everything possible to succeed. Then, with careful precision, he guided the child's small hands toward his. The child hesitated, fear making them pull back, but the rancher's steady voice encouraged them. You can do this, he said. Just a little closer. I've got you. Inch by inch, the child moved toward him, clinging to the rancher's strong grip. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the child was in his arms. Relief flooded both of them. The rancher held the child tightly, making sure they were safe and unharmed. The child sobbed into his shoulder, the tension of the past minutes finally breaking. After a few moments, the rancher set the child down on solid ground. He knelt beside them, checking for scratches or bruises. The child's small body trembled, but slowly they began to calm, realizing they were out of immediate danger. The rancher smiled gently, brushing hair from the child's face. You're safe now, he said. Everything's going to be okay. The child nodded, still clinging to him, and whispered a small, shaky thank you. As they walked back toward the ranch, the rancher thought about how quickly life could change. One moment, everything was calm. The next, a life was in danger. It reminded him that courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about acting even when fear was present. He also realized how important it was to stay alert, to notice small details, and to respond with care and urgency when needed. By the time they reached the main yard, the sun was fully above the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields. The rancher helped the child to the house, where warm blankets, water, and gentle words awaited. The animals in the yard seemed to sense the change in energy. The calm of the morning had shifted to something deeper, something meaningful. Today, the rancher hadn't just gone through his usual routine. He had faced a moment that tested his courage, his patience, and his humanity, and he had succeeded. As he sat for a moment catching his breath, the rancher couldn't help but smile. The day had started like any other, peaceful and quiet, but it had ended with a reminder of the value of life, the importance of vigilance, and the power of compassion. The ranch! The animals! The fields! All of it was part of something bigger, and today, that something bigger had revealed itself in a way he would never forget. The morning, which began with the soft golden light of routine, had become a story of courage and hope, a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful moments come unexpectedly, and that one person's quick thinking and bravery can make all the difference in the world. The calm of the morning had barely returned when the rancher heard it. A voice, urgent and full of fear, calling out across the fields. I'm begging you, hurry up! The words carried on the wind, cutting through the quiet like a knife. The rancher froze for a moment, his ears straining to catch the tone and direction of the plea. It wasn't the sound of an animal or the wind rustling through the trees. It was human, and it was desperate. His heart pounded in his chest. He had always believed that the ranch was a safe place, a refuge from the dangers of the outside world. But now that sense of security felt fragile, almost illusionary. Without a second thought, he left behind the familiar comfort of his home and headed toward the source of the voice. Each step was measured, careful, but faster than normal. He had learned long ago that hesitation could be dangerous. and there was no time to waste. The terrain was uneven and wild. Over the years, nature had claimed parts of the land, with tall grass hiding dips and rocks that jutted out unexpectedly. The rancher moved with practiced precision, avoiding loose stones and low-hanging branches, all the while following the sound that had pulled him from his morning routine. The voice called out again, more frantic this time, and he could hear the sharp catch of someone trying to breathe, to stay calm, to stay alive. As he drew closer, he noticed the ground changing beneath his boots. The familiar dirt of the main yard gave way to damp earth and scattered rocks near the creek. The water sparkled in the sunlight, but today its beauty was overshadowed by the urgency in the air. Small footprints marked the ground, tiny, hurried impressions that told the story of someone running, slipping, trying to escape danger. His mind raced, thinking of all the possibilities. Who could it be? A child? A lost hiker? Or someone else entirely? Then he saw it. A flash of color among the rocks, and a small figure struggling to stay upright. His heart leapt. It was a child. The child's arms were stretched out, reaching for anything that could prevent a fall. The rocks around them were sharp and uneven, slick with dew and mud. Every moment was critical, and the rancher knew that rushing in without thinking could make the situation worse. He took a deep breath, gathering courage, and began to plan the safest way to reach them. The child's face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears. Wide eyes reflected both fear and hope. "Please! Hurry! Please don't let me fall!" the voice cried again, trembling with desperation. The rancher could see that the child had been moving through the area alone for some time, slipping and catching themselves repeatedly, each time growing more exhausted. His mind filled with worry, but he forced himself to focus. Panic would only make the child more scared, and it could make a rescue impossible. He spotted a sturdy tree growing at the edge of the creek. Its thick branches extended outward, offering a natural anchor point. With careful movements, he reached into the back of his truck and retrieved a rope, one he had kept specifically for emergencies. The rope felt reassuring in his hands, strong and reliable. He tied it securely around the tree trunk, testing it with a firm tug. It held fast. The rancher's mind raced through every possible scenario, planning for the safest way to approach the child without endangering either of them. Speaking softly, he called out to the child, "I've got you. Just stay calm. Don't move too fast. I'm right here." The child's small voice wavered. I can't. I'm slipping." Each word sent a jolt of urgency through the rancher, but he forced himself to stay calm. Calm was contagious. If he panicked, the child would panic, and the situation could spiral into disaster. Inch by inch, he moved closer, careful not to disturb the loose rocks that could send both of them tumbling. The child's breathing was shallow, rapid with fear. "I don't want to fall," they whispered, voice trembling. The rancher nodded in his mind, understanding completely. He spoke again, gently, reassuringly. "I know. You won't. I've got you. Just reach toward me just a little at a time." He could see the child's fingers beginning to stretch toward him, shaking, trembling, but moving nonetheless. The rancher extended his arms slowly, giving them confidence. Suddenly, a small rock slipped under the child's foot, sending a sharp jolt of fear through both of them. "Ah!" the child cried out, clinging desperately to the ledge. The rancher's heart raced, but he held his position firmly, gripping the rope in one hand while reaching with the other. "I'm here! You're safe! Just hold on a moment longer!" he shouted, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him inside. Minutes felt like hours as the rancher inched closer. He could feel the strain in his muscles, the tension of balancing on unstable ground. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but he barely noticed. All his attention was on the child, every movement calculated to ensure their safety. The child's cries had become softer, mixed now with small gasps of relief as they realized someone capable was reaching for them. The rancher felt a surge of determination. He had faced challenges before. Storms, lost animals, and accidents. But this was different. This was human life in danger, and he would not fail. He adjusted his footing, slowly lowering his body to get closer without destabilizing the ground beneath him. "You can do this," he said, his voice soft and steady. "Just a little closer." "I'm right here." The child hesitated, fear making them pull back slightly, but the rancher kept talking, telling stories about the ranch, about the horses and cows, about little adventures that had happened on the property. The sound of his calm, familiar voice helped the child focus, giving them courage to make the move toward him. Finally, he reached out, hand extended, fingers brushing against the child's small, trembling hands. The child's grip was weak, but the rancher held on tightly, reassuring them with every word. "You're safe! I've got you." Slowly, carefully, he helped pull the child toward him, steadying them with his strength and balance. The rocks beneath them shifted, threatening, but he adjusted, keeping both of them stable. And then, at last, the child was within his arms, held securely against his chest. Relief washed over both of them. The child sobbed, the tension and fear of the past minutes spilling out in tears. The rancher held them tightly, rocking gently, whispering reassurances. "Death to the turncoat! You're okay now. It's over. You're safe!" He felt a wave of gratitude that he had been able to reach the child in time. The risk had been high, but preparation, calmness, and courage had made the rescue possible. After a moment, the rancher set the child down on solid ground, kneeling to check for injuries. The child shivered but seemed unharmed, only shaken and exhausted. "Thank you." "Thank you so much," they whispered, tears still running down their cheeks. The rancher smiled gently, brushing dirt and sweat from their hair. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "I'm just glad you're safe. That's what matters." Together, they began the walk back to the main ranch yard. The child leaned on the rancher, slightly exhausted but safe. Birds chirped overhead, seemingly celebrating the return to calm. The morning that had begun with an urgent cry had shifted into one of quiet relief and reflection. Every step they took reminded the rancher how fragile life could be, and how quickly circumstances could change. One moment the world seemed calm, the next it demanded courage, focus, and compassion. As they approached the yard, the rancher noticed neighbors starting to gather, drawn by the commotion. Their faces reflected curiosity, concern, and soon, relief as they saw the child safe. He gave a small nod, reassuring them that everything was under control. The child's family rushed forward, gratitude and tears flowing freely. The rancher remained humble, quietly acknowledging their thanks, but inside, he felt a deep satisfaction. He had faced a dangerous situation, acted with care and courage, and ensured a life was saved. Sitting for a moment afterward, the rancher reflected on the experience. It was a reminder that life on the ranch, though often peaceful, was never without its challenges. It was also a lesson in the importance of staying alert, prepared, and compassionate. Sometimes emergencies came from nowhere, and when they did, courage and calm could make all the difference. The morning that had started with routine and quiet had turned into a story of bravery, hope, and the profound impact of one person acting decisively in a moment of crisis. The sun was higher now, shining brightly across the fields, and the rancher felt the warmth not just on his skin but in his heart. He had been tested, and he had passed, not through strength alone, but through patience, careful planning, and empathy. Today, a life had been saved, and the bond between him and the child had been forged in a way that neither would ever forget. It was a day that reminded him why he loved the ranch, why he loved the life he had built, and why every moment, no matter how quiet or routine, could hold unexpected meaning. The rancher's heart was still pounding, but he knew that the rescue wasn't over until the child was completely safe. They were perched on a narrow ledge above a steep slope, surrounded by jagged rocks and slippery dirt. One wrong step could send them both tumbling. The rancher took a deep breath, trying to calm his own racing thoughts. Fear was natural, but panic would not help. He had to think clearly and act carefully. He looked at the child, who was holding tightly to the rope he had tied to the sturdy tree. The small hands were trembling, knuckles white, and the face was streaked with tears and dirt. The child's eyes, wide with fear, flicked between the rancher and the dangerous drop below. I can't do it!" the child whispered, voice quivering. The rancher shook his head gently, kneeling as close as he could without slipping. Yes, you can, he said softly. I'm right here. You're stronger than you think. Just one step at a time, and I'll be with you every step. His voice was calm, steady, and reassuring. He had learned over years on the ranch that words could calm even the most frightened animal, and the same was true for a child. The right words spoken at the right moment could give courage. The child took a shallow breath and tried to move closer to the rancher. Their small legs shook, and their grip on the rocks faltered, sending a small cascade of pebbles sliding down the slope. It's okay, the rancher said encouragingly. You're safe as long as you hold on to me. Trust me. He extended his hand slowly, making sure not to shift his own weight too much. Just grab my hand and I'll pull you up a little at a time. For a moment it seemed as if the child might freeze entirely, paralyzed by fear. Their lips quivered and their eyes welled up with tears. The rancher reached out his free hand, gently brushing a strand of hair from the child's face. Look at me, he said softly. I've got you. You're going to be okay. Breathe with me. He inhaled deeply and encouraged the child to do the same. Slowly, deliberately, the child's breathing began to match his, small sobs turning into calmer breaths. The rancher tested the child's grip, gently tugging on their hand to see if they could hold steady. The child nodded, swallowing hard, their small body tense but responsive. Good, the rancher said, giving a reassuring smile. We'll do this together, one small move at a time. You can do it! Inch by inch, he guided the child along the narrow ledge, using the rope for extra stability. Every careful step required attention and balance. One slip could be disastrous, but the rancher's calm presence gave the child the confidence to keep moving. As they moved, the rancher kept talking, telling stories about the ranch, about the animals, about the small adventures he had had as a boy. The child listened, sniffling occasionally but focusing on the rancher's voice rather than the fear below. It was a small victory, but a crucial one. Distracting the child from panic made it possible for them to follow instructions and stay steady. The rancher had learned that in emergencies, every little mental support could make the difference between safety and disaster. Suddenly, the child's foot slipped on a loose rock, sending a small cascade of stones down the slope. The rancher's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his focus. Hold on! I've got you! He shouted. His hands tightened on the child's, stabilizing them immediately. The child cried out, gripping the rancher even harder. It's okay, he said, his voice firm but gentle. You're safe, take your time. I won't let go. Slowly, carefully, he helped the child regain balance. Each movement had to be precise. Each step had to be measured. The rancher's own legs were burning with tension, muscles straining as he leaned over the edge to support the child. He could feel every pebble underfoot, every slight tilt of the earth, every small movement that could cause imbalance. But his focus never wavered. His life experience on the ranch had taught him patience, precision, and problem-solving under pressure. This was different from handling animals or mending fences. It was about human life, and the stakes could not have been higher. The child's small hands trembled again, but the rancher continued speaking softly, encouragingly. Almost there, he said. Just a little closer, and you'll be safe. I'm right here. His voice had a rhythm to it, a steady beat that gave the child a sense of stability. Each step brought them closer to the tree, to solid ground, and the rancher's heart leapt a little with each movement. The fear was still there, but hope had begun to take root. Finally, they reached a point where the child could step onto a larger, more stable rock. The rancher helped them adjust their footing, making sure the rope was secure and that both of them were balanced. You're doing great, he said. Just one more small move, and we'll be completely safe. The child nodded, swallowing hard, taking a deep breath, and trusting the rancher completely. It was a moment of courage, of reliance on another person, and the rancher felt proud of their bravery. With one final careful step, the child reached the area where the tree and rope provided complete support. The rancher guided them to stand firmly on the solid ground. The child's knees wobbled slightly, but they were safe. Tears of relief streamed down their face, and they looked up at the rancher with a mixture of gratitude and awe. You saved me," they whispered, voice trembling. The ranchers smiled, brushing dirt and sweat from their hair. "We did it together," he said. "You stayed brave, and I helped you. That's what matters." The rancher knelt down, letting the child lean against him as they both caught their breath. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a sense of relief and calm. "You're okay now," he said. "You're safe. Nothing can hurt you here." The child nodded, sniffling but slowly smiling, their fear beginning to give way to comfort and trust. The rancher realized in that moment how fragile life could be, but also how resilience and courage could overcome even the most terrifying situations. Looking around, the rancher noted the steep slope and jagged rocks that they had just navigated. It could have been disastrous, but careful thinking, patience, and courage had turned a dangerous situation into a story of survival. He thought about the importance of preparation, of knowing the land, and of being ready to act when needed. Every detail mattered. Each rope, each careful step, each reassuring word. The child finally began to relax, their small body leaning more confidently against the rancher. They whispered again, "Thank you! I was so scared." The rancher smiled gently. "It's okay to be scared," he said. "Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means acting even when you are—" The child's eyes widened slightly, understanding the meaning in his words. It was a lesson in courage, patience, and trust that they would carry with them forever. Together they began the slow walk back toward safer ground, the rancher supporting the child whenever the terrain shifted or rocks threatened to slip. Every step was careful, deliberate, and focused on safety. The morning sun had climbed higher, and its warmth offered a comforting contrast to the tension of the rescue. Birds chirped overhead, as if acknowledging the triumph of courage over fear. As they approached the main yard, neighbors began to gather, drawn by the sounds of movement and relief. Their faces reflected concern, but that concern quickly turned to gratitude as they saw the child safe and unharmed. The rancher remained calm, quietly acknowledging their relief while focusing on helping the child fully regain their composure. "It's okay," he said to the crowd. "They're safe! That's what matters!" Finally, they reached solid, flat ground. The child hugged the rancher tightly, small arms around his neck, still trembling but safe. "I thought I was going to fall," they whispered. "Thank you for not letting me!" The rancher smiled warmly, holding them close. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "You did everything right. I just helped you along the way." It was a quiet moment of connection, a shared understanding of fear, courage, and relief. The rancher guided the child to the house, where warm blankets and water awaited. The child's family rushed forward, tears of gratitude streaming down their faces. The rancher remained humble, offering only a reassuring smile. Inside, he reflected on the rescue. Life could be unpredictable and fragile, but with courage, patience, and quick thinking, even the most dangerous situations could be overcome. Today, he had not only saved a life, but also shared a lesson in bravery and compassion that would resonate far beyond the ranch. Sitting for a few moments afterward, the rancher looked out at the fields. The sun shone brightly over the land he loved, and the animals grazed peacefully, unaware of the danger that had just passed. The morning had begun quietly, with routine and calm, but it had ended as a story of courage, hope, and the extraordinary power of human connection. The rancher knew that this day, this moment, would stay with him forever, a reminder that even in the face of fear, calm, courage, and compassion could save a life. The rancher could feel the tension in the air as he steadied the child in his arms. Every muscle in his body was alert, every sense tuned to the dangers around them. The steep slope below them was unforgiving, a jumble of sharp rocks and loose earth. One slip, one misstep, and the consequences would be catastrophic. But the rancher had faced challenges before, and he knew that calm thinking and careful action could make the difference between disaster and safety. He looked down at the child, whose small face was pale and streaked with dirt and tears. We're almost there, the rancher said softly, trying to instill confidence. Just a little further, and you'll be completely safe. I've got you. Nothing is going to happen to you. The child's lips trembled as they clung to him, but there was a small glimmer of trust in their wide eyes. The rancher knew that fear could freeze a person, but trust could empower them to act, even when the situation seemed impossible. The first step was to find a stable spot where the child could safely put their feet. The ground beneath them was uneven, and every movement had to be deliberate. The rancher tested each rock and patch of dirt with his boots before shifting his weight. He balanced carefully, holding the child close, feeling their small heartbeat against his chest. Each second was critical. The rancher spoke in a calm, steady voice, guiding the child through each small adjustment, just one step at a time. We can do this together. You're stronger than you think. The child nodded, gripping the rancher tightly, their tiny hands wrapped around his arm as they moved inch by inch toward safer ground. The rancher's eyes never left the path ahead, scanning for loose rocks, slippery patches, or anything that could pose a threat. The rope tied to the tree offered some support, but he couldn't rely on it entirely. He had to ensure that every step they took was secure. Suddenly, a small rock shifted under the child's foot, causing a jolt of fear to run through both of them. The child gasped and tried to grab hold of the rancher even more tightly. It's okay, he said firmly, holding the child securely. I've got you. Just stay with me, and we'll move safely. With careful guidance, he helped the child regain balance, showing patience and reassurance with each movement. The child's fear began to subside slightly as they realized the rancher's calm presence could protect them. The next challenge was a narrow ledge that led to a cluster of stable rocks. The rancher could see that this was the most dangerous section of the climb. He shifted his weight carefully, keeping the child pressed against him while inching along the ledge. Every small movement required concentration and control. He spoke to the child continuously, telling them to focus on him, to trust the rhythm of his voice, and to breathe slowly. We're doing great, he said. Just a little further and we'll be completely safe. The child's hands trembled as they adjusted their footing, but they followed the rancher's guidance. Fear was still there, but hope was growing. The rancher could feel it, a small spark of courage igniting in the child's heart. It was remarkable how even a brief moment of trust could empower someone to overcome a terrifying situation. Inch by inch, they moved forward, the rancher carefully positioning himself to provide maximum support while keeping both of them stable. At one point, the child's foot slipped again, and they cried out. The rancher acted instantly, stabilizing them with one arm while using the other to grip the rope tied to the tree. I've got you, he shouted. Nothing is going to happen. Just stay with me. The child's small body shook with fear, but the rancher's steady presence kept panic at bay. He adjusted their position, ensuring that their weight was balanced and that the next step would be safe. The trust between them grew with each careful movement. Finally, they reached the section where the rocks were larger and more stable. The rancher guided the child to stand firmly, checking that their footing was secure. Almost there, he said, his voice calm and encouraging. Just a few more steps and we'll be completely safe. The child's small hands clutched his arm tightly, but they began to move forward, taking small, deliberate steps under his guidance. Every inch was a victory, a step away from danger and toward safety. The rancher's focus never wavered. He knew that this was the most critical part of the rescue. One misstep could undo all the progress they had made. He kept talking to the child, encouraging them, telling them about the animals on the ranch, about small adventures, and about how proud he was of their bravery. The child's attention shifted from fear to the rancher's words, allowing them to concentrate on each step rather than the danger below. As they approached the base of the large tree, the rancher felt a surge of relief. This was the point where the child could finally stand on solid ground without the threat of slipping. He guided them carefully, helping them place their feet securely on the firm earth. The child's small knees wobbled, but the rancher held them steadily. You're safe now, he said softly. Everything is okay, you did it. The child's face lit up with a mixture of relief and disbelief.
I'm okay, they whispered, voice trembling. The rancher nodded, smiling warmly.
Yes, you're okay, you stayed brave, and now you're safe. That's what matters. The child clung to him for a moment longer, their fear replaced by gratitude and trust. It was a powerful moment, one that neither of them would forget. The rancher guided the child a few steps away from the slope, ensuring that they were completely on stable ground. He knelt down, checking them for injuries. There were only a few scrapes and bruises, nothing serious. The child's trembling began to fade, replaced by a sense of relief and security. "See?" the rancher said gently. "You're fine. Nothing bad happened because you stayed calm and trusted me." The child nodded, tears of relief streaming down their face. As they walked back toward the ranch house, the rancher kept his arm around the child, steadying them and offering reassurance with every step. The sun was higher in the sky now, casting bright light over the fields. Birds sang from the trees, and the ranch animals grazed peacefully, unaware of the near disaster that had just occurred. The rancher felt a wave of gratitude for his quick thinking, for the child's courage, and for the simple fact that they had both made it through safely. Neighbors and family members began to gather as the two approached the yard. Their faces showed concern, which quickly turned to relief and joy when they saw that the child was unharmed. The rancher remained humble, quietly explaining what had happened and reassuring them that the child was safe. The family hugged their child tightly, tears of gratitude flowing freely. The rancher smiled quietly, feeling the warmth of the moment but keeping his focus on the child's comfort and recovery. Inside the house, the child was given a warm blanket and a glass of water. The rancher stayed close, speaking softly to calm any lingering fear. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe. You're brave. You made it through something very scary, and you did it." The child listened intently, comforted by the rancher's calm presence and gentle words. It was a moment of healing, both physical and emotional, after the terrifying ordeal they had just faced. The rancher took a few moments to himself, stepping outside to look over the fields. The sun shone brightly, the animals moved peacefully, and the morning's tension seemed to melt into the calm of the day. He reflected on the events, realizing how quickly life could change, how fragile safety could be, and how important it was to stay alert, prepared, and compassionate. The experience reminded him that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. As he watched the child laughing softly with their family, the rancher felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Today had tested him in ways he had never anticipated, but it had also reinforced his connection to the land, the people, and the life he had built. Courage, preparation, and quick thinking had turned a moment of potential tragedy into a story of hope, bravery, and human connection. By the time the sun was high in the sky, the rancher had helped the child and family regain their composure. The community, though shaken by the near accident, celebrated the outcome, praising the rancher's quick thinking and bravery. Yet he remained humble, knowing that it was not just his skill but also the child's trust and courage that had made the rescue possible. The day had been a lesson in humanity, patience, and the profound importance of caring for one another. The rancher returned to his daily chores with a sense of calm and gratitude. The morning had been a routine like any other, but it had transformed into a story that would stay with him forever. It was a reminder that life could be unpredictable, that danger could appear at any moment, and that courage, empathy, and quick thinking could make the difference between tragedy and survival. Today, a life had been saved, and the bond between the rancher and the child had been forged in a way that neither would ever forget. The rescue had ended, but the morning's tension still lingered in the rancher's mind. As he watched the child hugging their family tightly, he felt a deep sense of relief. The child was safe, unharmed except for a few minor scrapes, and the family's tears of gratitude warmed his heart. It was a moment he would never forget. Life, he realized, was fragile, but moments like these made every challenge, every early morning, and every long day on the ranch worth it. Neighbors and friends began to arrive, drawn by the commotion and the story of the child's narrow escape. They asked questions, expressed concern, and offered praise for the rancher's bravery. Yet, he remained humble. "It's not about me," he said quietly. "It's about the child being safe. That's what matters." His words reflected the honesty and modesty that had defined his life on the ranch. The community, however, saw him as a hero, someone who had acted without hesitation when it mattered most. The family invited the rancher inside, offering food and drinks as a way to show their gratitude. He accepted, but his mind remained partly on the events that had just occurred. He replayed the moments in his head. The child clinging to the rocks, the slippery slope, the careful steps, and the final relief when solid ground was reached. Every detail was vivid, etched into his memory. It reminded him of the importance of vigilance, preparation, and calm thinking in emergencies. The child, now calmer and resting with a warm blanket, kept looking at the rancher with awe and gratitude. "I can't believe you saved me," the child whispered. The rancher smiled gently. "You saved yourself too," he replied. "You stayed brave and trusted me. That's what made it possible." The child's small face lit up with a tentative smile, understanding that courage could come in many forms, not just physical strength, but also trust and patience. As the day went on, the rancher took a moment to walk through the fields he loved so much. The sun had risen high, casting golden light over the pastures and barns. The animals grazed peacefully, oblivious to the human drama that had unfolded earlier. The rancher felt a profound sense of connection to this land. It wasn't just a place where he worked. It was a place where life could be nurtured, protected, and even saved. Today had proven that in the most unexpected way. He reflected on the lessons the morning had taught him. Life was unpredictable, often changing in an instant. Danger could appear without warning, and yet courage, quick thinking, and compassion could turn a near tragedy into survival. The rancher also thought about the child, realizing that this experience would likely stay with them forever. They had faced fear, relied on trust, and learned firsthand that even the scariest moments could be overcome with help, patience, and courage. Neighbors continued to offer words of admiration, yet the rancher remained focused on practical matters. There were fences to check, animals to feed, and routines to maintain. Life on the ranch continued, as it always did, but with a new depth of meaning. The rescue had reminded him of the responsibility that came with the land, the animals, and the people around him. Every day could hold unexpected challenges, and being ready to face them mattered more than anything else. The child's family insisted on giving the rancher a gift as thanks. He accepted with gratitude, though he felt no need for recognition. The satisfaction of knowing the child was safe was reward enough. He watched as the family laughed, cried, and embraced each other, their relief palpable. This small act of heroism had strengthened bonds not just between the rancher and the family, but within the community as a whole. Later in the afternoon, the rancher returned to his favorite spot by the creek. He sat quietly on a large rock, watching the water flow over the smooth stones. The sound was soothing, a reminder of life's continuity despite moments of chaos. He thought about the child, the rescue, and the lessons of the day. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was action in spite of it. Trust could save lives. Preparation and calm thinking could turn danger into safety, and every moment, no matter how ordinary it seemed, could carry extraordinary meaning. The rancher's reflection was interrupted by the sound of the child's laughter. They were exploring the yard with their parents, safe and full of energy once more. The sight brought a smile to his face. Today, something profound had happened, not just the rescue, but the reminder that life's value was found in small acts of courage, compassion, and connection. Each of these moments, though fleeting, had the power to change lives forever. Even as the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the rancher felt a sense of peace. The danger was over, but the experience had left a lasting mark. He knew that he would remember this day, not as a moment of fear, but as a story of bravery, hope, and human connection. It had reminded him why he loved the ranch, why he devoted his life to this land, and why simple acts of courage could have extraordinary impact. As evening approached, the rancher returned to his chores, but there was a lighter step in his movement. The day's events had reinforced the importance of vigilance, preparation, and kindness. Every fence mended, every animal cared for, and every task completed carried new meaning. Life on the ranch was not just about survival. It was about nurturing, protecting, and making a difference. no matter how small it might seem. The child's family lingered nearby, offering thanks once more before departing. Their words of gratitude warmed the rancher's heart, but he remained modest. "It was nothing," he said. "Just make sure to stay safe. That's what matters." Yet inside, he knew the experience had changed him. It had reinforced his understanding of courage, trust, and the importance of acting decisively when lives are at stake. That evening, as the rancher watched the sun set over the fields, the sky painted with hues of orange and pink, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life was unpredictable, full of unexpected challenges and moments of danger. Yet it was also full of hope, courage, and the possibility of making a difference. Today had been a reminder of that truth, a life saved, a child's trust honored, and a community strengthened by an act of bravery. The rancher knew that the story of this day would stay with him forever. It was not just a tale of fear and danger, but one of courage, patience, and human connection. Every detail, from the first desperate cry to the final safe step onto solid ground, had shown the importance of staying calm, thinking clearly, and acting with compassion. The experience had proven that even in the most frightening situations, hope and bravery could prevail. As night fell, the rancher sat by the porch, listening to the gentle sounds of the ranch, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the contented noises of the animals settling down. He reflected on the events, realizing that the morning's chaos had brought clarity, reminding him of the value of every single moment, every choice, and every act of courage. Life was precious, and it was in these moments of challenge that its meaning became most clear. Before going inside for the night, the rancher looked once more at the stars beginning to appear in the clear sky. He thought about the child, their family, and the community. Today had been a story of bravery, but it had also been a story of trust, connection, and humanity. He felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had made a difference, and a profound sense of responsibility to continue living with awareness, compassion, and courage. As he closed the door to the ranch house, he carried with him the lessons of the day. That courage comes in many forms, that fear can be met with calm and action, and that small acts of care can create lasting impact. The ranch was quiet now, the danger past, but the story of today would live on in his memory, a reminder of the extraordinary power of ordinary people acting with heart and bravery.